She sits perfectly still in the courtroom, a wry smile on her face, unbothered, calm, like someone who's attended 100 trials and knows exactly how they end. She straightens her clothes as the court rises, composed as ever. She spent years as a crime scene technician for the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. She helped detectives process evidence. She knew how investigations worked. Her lawyers painted her as a trusted friend caught in tragic circumstances. Her friend was unstable, they claimed, going through a bitter divorce, emotionally fragile. She was just trying to help her through a difficult time. They say she's innocent.
They found nothing to connect Miss McArthur to the death.
It could have worked. The courtroom believed her, but then prosecutors showed them what she bought the day after her friend vanished. Concrete mix, potting soil, a shovel, and everything changed. What you're about to see is the moment Ashley McArthur's expertise failed her. The moment her own training exposed what she thought she'd hidden forever. Not for months, not for years, for life. Her victim, Taylor Wright, was only 33 years old when she was shot once in the back of the head. And the proof of what really happened came from 2 feet of dirt on property McArthur's family owned. This is the chilling case of the crime scene expert who tried to create the perfect burial. Everything you're about to hear comes directly from court documents, police files, and sworn testimony. What unfolded in Pensacola, Florida that September morning shows how friendship can mask betrayal, how money drives murder, and how a woman's professional training became the blueprint for her own conviction. But investigators almost missed the most damning evidence, a shopping receipt from the day after Taylor vanished that would unravel everything. Taylor Wright was 33 years old and known by everyone who met her as tough, independent, and sometimes blunt. She had spent years as a police officer in North Carolina before changing paths to become a private investigator. But by mid-2017, her own life was wearing her down. Taylor was going through a bitter divorce from her husband, Jeff Wright. The process had turned hostile. They were fighting over money, property, and custody issues, the kind of divorce that destroys everything it touches.
Now, in September 2017, were you and Taylor legally divorced?
Yes.
Even though you were legally divorced, were you and Taylor still going to court in Florida?
Yes.
Okay. And was that over some financial issues?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did Taylor withdraw some money that she was not supposed to?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us the date, if you recall, and how much money it was?
Yes. The last time it occurred was 12 July 2017.
And how much did she withdraw?
$100,000.
Was Taylor in trouble with the court about that?
That's correct.
The cash was supposed to be a safety net, money she could hold on to until the court sorted everything out. But that money also brought her anxiety. She didn't want it sitting around where someone could find it. She didn't trust banks with this much cash, and she didn't have family nearby she could rely on. That's when she turned to her friend, Ashley McArthur. Ashley was 40 years old and had lived her whole life in Pensacola. She was smart, confident, and had a background that gave her an air of authority. She used to work as a crime scene technician for the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, helping investigators process evidence from crime scenes. She'd later left that job to manage her family's business, Pensacola Automatic Amusement. The company supplied jukeboxes, pool tables, and arcade machines to bars and restaurants across the area. To most people, Ashley was social and easy to talk to, always with a joke or a smile. The kind of person who could make you feel like everything was under control. That was exactly what Taylor needed during her chaotic divorce. The 2 women had met through mutual friends in law enforcement circles. Taylor admired Ashley's confidence and experience. Ashley seemed to genuinely enjoy Taylor's company. They bonded quickly. Both were strong-willed. Both shared similar career paths. It made sense that Taylor trusted her. By early summer 2017, Taylor and her new girlfriend, Cassandra Waller, had moved into a home together in Pensacola. According to Cassandra, Taylor was affectionate and protective. She'd told Cassandra about Ashley and how she had agreed to hold on to $34,000 in cash, part of the money from her marital account, until things with the divorce calmed down. Cassandra said Taylor seemed completely at ease with that decision. Ashley had been in law enforcement, after all. Who better to trust with something that sensitive? For a while, everything seemed fine, but there was something about Ashley's financial situation that Taylor didn't know yet. By late August 2017, something started to shift. Taylor began to sound uneasy whenever Cassandra asked about the money. In text messages later reviewed by investigators, Taylor mentioned asking Ashley about it a few times. She never got a clear answer. Ashley would respond with evasive answers. "I'll take care of it soon." "Don't worry about it." The kind of responses that create more questions than they solve. Taylor didn't push too hard at first. She didn't want to seem paranoid, but deep down, something felt off. On August 30th, Cassandra recalled Taylor coming home frustrated. Taylor kept saying she didn't understand why Ashley was avoiding the topic. But Taylor wasn't the type to let things slide for long. The more vague Ashley became, the more determined Taylor felt to get answers.
Taylor, it seemed like she was getting paranoid. She was talking about how she felt like something just wasn't right with Ashley. She wasn't sure if Ash had her money or not. Because Taylor had been trying to get the money out of Ash's safety deposit box, Taylor said, for like 4 or 5 days. And I was like, Taylor, she's probably been really busy. And she goes, no, Cass. She goes, like, I'm telling you, something just doesn't feel right with me.
Still, she tried to be patient. The two women were friends. Maybe Ashley was just busy. Maybe she was waiting for the right time. Then the tension between them began to show. Taylor started pacing when she talked about it, according to Cassandra. She would check her phone often, expecting a message that never came. Even Taylor's tone changed, less casual, more irritated. By early September, Taylor had made up her mind. She was going to meet Ashley in person and straighten everything out, once and for all. What Taylor didn't realize was that Ashley's family business was struggling financially. Income was inconsistent, expenses were rising, and that $34,000 was already gone. September 8th, 2017, Friday morning. The temperature in Pensacola was in the high 80s, the kind of humid warmth that pressed down by mid-morning. Taylor got ready at home, exchanged a few texts with Cassandra, mentioned her plans to meet Ashley. She said it wouldn't take long. At 10 a.m., Ashley pulled up to the house. Taylor walked out, got in the vehicle, and they drove off together. Cassandra thought it was going to be a normal day.
Ashley pulled up, and I was like, all right, we hugged, we kissed, said love you. I went my way.
But it would be the very last time she ever saw Taylor. Hours passed. By afternoon, Taylor didn't call or text. At first, Cassandra assumed the conversation with Ashley had dragged out. Maybe Taylor had gone for a drive afterward to clear her head, something she sometimes did when stressed. But as evening approached, the silence became worrying. Cassandra's texts went unread. Calls went to voicemail. She sent message after message asking where Taylor was. Nothing came back. That night, she reached out to a few of Taylor's close friends. None had heard from her. No one had seen her car. By the next morning, September 9th, Cassandra's concern had turned into alarm. Taylor's phone was still off. No activity, no sign of her anywhere. Cassandra contacted the Pensacola Police Department to file a missing person report. She explained that Taylor had been in the middle of a divorce, that she'd gone to meet her friend Ashley the day before to discuss money. When police first contacted Ashley, she didn't seem nervous. She told them Taylor had stopped by. They'd run a few errands together. Then Taylor suddenly left. At first, that story sounded plausible. Taylor was under stress. Maybe she really had taken off to cool down. But Cassandra insisted it didn't make sense. Taylor wasn't impulsive like that. She wouldn't just vanish without calling, and she definitely wouldn't ignore her loved ones for more than a few hours. Detectives began to take a closer look. Remember those errands Ashley mentioned? The story was about to fall apart completely. Detectives checked Taylor's cell phone records. One thing stood out immediately. After 11:20 a.m. on September 8th, her phone went silent. No texts, no calls, no activity whatsoever, like she'd stepped off the planet. In the days that followed, the search for Taylor grew wider. Friends organized calls and social media posts, hoping for leads. Cassandra gave multiple interviews to detectives, explaining that Taylor had been anxious about her money, that her last known meeting had been with Ashley McArthur. The whole thing didn't make sense. When investigators opened a formal missing persons case on September 10th, they knew time was critical. They pulled Taylor's phone records, bank activity, and social media logs. Everything came to an abrupt stop on September 8th around 11:20 a.m. Her credit cards and bank accounts showed no activity after that time. The last confirmed sighting came from surveillance cameras in Pensacola. Footage showed Taylor's gray pickup truck driving through the city that morning. Beside her, the passenger's figure matched the build and hairstyle of Ashley McArthur. That confirmed they were together, just as Ashley had said. When detectives reached Ashley again, she was calm. She repeated her story. Taylor and her went to retrieve her money. After that, they went to the bank, handled some cash, and Taylor left on her own. Ashley described it as an emotional meeting. Taylor was upset, she claimed, had told her she needed space and wanted to be alone. They also asked her directly where Taylor was.
Where's Taylor at? You need to tell us where she's at.
I don't know where Taylor is.
Police noted the details and thanked her for her time. But something about the story didn't quite hold up. If Taylor had indeed taken her money and left, why wasn't there any trace of her afterward? Why hadn't she reached out to anyone? Detectives dug deeper. They obtained bank surveillance footage from the day Ashley mentioned. The video showed Ashley entering the bank alone. There was no sign of Taylor in the vehicle or at the teller line. The timeline didn't match up with Ashley's version of events. Ashley also mentioned something else during questioning that raised red flags. She said she felt uncomfortable and needed to lawyer up.
I think at this point I need an attorney because it seems to be that y'all think that I did something to her.
For someone who claimed to be helping find her missing friend, that seemed like an odd move. But what detectives discovered next would change everything about this investigation. Detectives obtained phone location data for both women. The pattern was striking. On the morning Taylor went missing, both Taylor's and Ashley's phones were in the same general area for several hours. That matched what Ashley said about them being together. Then, around noon, Taylor's phone stopped transmitting. Completely dark, but Ashley's phone continued moving. First toward downtown Pensacola, then north toward a stretch of rural land off Cantonment Road, property owned by her family. That caught their attention immediately. Over the next several weeks, detectives collected witness statements and security footage from different businesses along Ashley's routes that day. Around the same time, she sent casual text messages to friends and family, describing her day as normal. Nothing unusual at all. In interviews, Ashley stayed consistent with her story. Taylor had left angry and refused to answer calls. She assumed Taylor needed to clear her head. She herself had nothing to hide. But the detectives were patient. They kept building the puzzle. A few weeks later, they pulled financial records connected to the money Taylor had withdrawn. According to statements, none of it had been redeposited or spent through legitimate accounts. It was gone, all of it. By late September, the case began to draw attention around Escambia County. Posters of Taylor's photo started appearing on store windows and social media. Volunteers searched wooded areas outside Pensacola while detectives continued quietly gathering data. Then came a turning point. A search warrant for Ashley McArthur's phone revealed a set of location pings from early September. They placed her in remote, seldom visited parts of northern Escambia County. One area in particular drew their focus: a property on Britt Road, several acres of farmland connected to the McArthur family business. It wasn't enough to act immediately, but investigators marked it for further inspection. They interviewed Ashley again in early October 2017. This time, her demeanor had changed. She seemed guarded, more careful with her words.
What were y'all doing out there at this farm? You know y'all were there.
We picked up some stuff that Taylor had there
What was
that
there?
she had stored. Some kind of lockbox that she had.
Why would you not tell us that originally?
Because she asked me not to tell anyone ever.
She was completely vague throughout, and the detectives noted that down. But just before they began preparing for what they suspected they might find, they got her to admit that she was with Taylor for several hours on the Milton farm.
So really, in essence, you spent, it seems like, at least a large portion of the majority of your day out here.
It really wasn't, though. I mean, we were...
Several hours.
There was one piece of evidence still buried that would prove Ashley's entire story was a lie. November 17th, 2017, 2 months after Taylor disappeared, investigators from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office arrived at the Britt Road property. The property was quiet, a mix of pasture, dirt paths, and a few outbuildings. Standard rural Florida land. They brought cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar equipment. Standard tools for searches involving large rural spaces. Late in the afternoon, one of the dogs alerted near a secluded area behind a fence line, close to where old farm equipment had been stored. The ground there looked slightly disturbed, a patch of soil covered with a thin layer of concrete and potting material. Detectives began carefully removing the top layer. As the concrete crumbled away, the first trace of human remains appeared. The area was immediately sealed off. Crime scene technicians worked into the evening under floodlights, documenting every inch. Beneath the concrete, plastic wrapping. Beneath the plastic, skeletal remains of an adult woman. She was wearing a necklace that looked exactly like Taylor Wright's. The discovery shocked everyone involved. What had started as a missing person case now became a full-scale homicide investigation. The detectives couldn't help noticing how carefully the burial had been arranged. It was deliberate, methodical, professional. The next morning, the remains were transported to the medical examiner's office in Pensacola for autopsy. Preliminary findings confirmed the body was indeed Taylor Wright. Early analysis showed signs consistent with a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. Back at the sheriff's office, investigators began cross-referencing the burial materials with purchase records. It didn't take long before a series of receipts surfaced, one from a local hardware store, time-stamped September 9th, the day after Taylor disappeared. The buyer, Ashley McArthur. Items purchased: concrete mix, potting soil, and a shovel. Think about that for a moment. The woman who claimed her friend left upset and drove away had purchased burial materials the very next morning. But here's what destroyed the defense completely. Ashley McArthur knew how crime scenes worked. She'd processed dozens of them during her time with the sheriff's office. She understood forensics, evidence chains, how detectives built cases. She thought she could create the perfect burial, but expertise can become arrogance, and arrogance leads to mistakes. Detectives didn't rush to judgment. They needed to build a case that would hold in court. They began by reconstructing Ashley's movements on the days surrounding Taylor's disappearance. The data trail was telling. Cell phone tower records showed Ashley's phone traveling north toward her family's property on September 8th, the same area where Taylor's phone last pinged before going silent. Later that evening, her phone returned south toward Pensacola, stopping briefly at a gas station near Cervantes Street. Surveillance footage showed her vehicle there at approximately 6:45 p.m. She looked calm, unhurried, like nothing had happened. The next day, September 9th, Ashley's phone was active again around mid-morning. That was the same period when receipts showed she bought concrete mix, potting soil, and other items later found at the burial site. Investigators also located a photo from that same weekend, Ashley at a bar, smiling alongside friends, acting as if nothing was wrong, but evidence alone wasn't enough. They needed motive. The money, which had been considered a side issue, began to look more central. Through bank and phone records, police learned that Taylor had transferred $34,000 to Ashley earlier that summer. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the divorce settled. But when Taylor started asking for it back, Ashley's responses had been evasive, dismissive, stalling. Now, with Taylor gone, that money had vanished too. Financial records from Pensacola Automatic Amusement showed that the company had been struggling. Income was inconsistent. Expenses were rising. Investigators speculated that Ashley may have used some of Taylor's money to prop up the business or cover personal debts. Once she spent it, she couldn't return it. And when Taylor demanded it back, Ashley had a problem. As detectives pieced this together, they noticed she got more and more uncomfortable as they revealed evidence they had against her. By early 2018, a clearer timeline had emerged. On the morning of September 8th, Taylor and Ashley met to discuss the missing money. Sometime after 11 a.m., Taylor stopped responding to all communications. Ashley's phone placed her near the area where Taylor's remains were later found. Within 24 hours, she purchased materials consistent with the burial site. The forensic evidence sealed it. Analysis of the burial site uncovered fragments of ballistic evidence, a spent .38 caliber bullet, partially deformed, consistent with a revolver Ashley was known to own. Gunshot residue testing from the scene further strengthened the theory. Taylor had been shot once at close range before being buried. Everything pointed to one conclusion. Ashley McArthur had killed her friend and tried to hide the evidence using the same techniques she'd learned as a crime scene technician. But she'd left a trail, and investigators had followed every step. March 15th, 2018. After months of compiling digital records, financial evidence, and forensic reports, investigators obtained a warrant for Ashley McArthur's arrest. She was charged with first-degree premeditated murder and fraud-related offenses tied to the stolen funds. The arrest sent shockwaves through Pensacola. Ashley was well known in local circles. A former crime scene technician, she came from a respected family, was seen as responsible and trustworthy. The idea that she could be involved in a friend's death seemed almost unbelievable. Ashley was booked into the Escambia County Jail but released on bond a few weeks later as the case moved toward trial. Her defense team maintained her innocence. They insisted there was no direct evidence linking her to the killing. They emphasized that no weapon had been recovered. That much of the state's case relied on circumstantial connections, phone data, purchase receipts, inconsistent statements. But the prosecution had more than that. Forensic analysis of the burial site, ballistic evidence matching her weapon, financial records showing motive, phone data placing her at the scene, and testimony that would paint a darker picture of who Ashley McArthur really was. The trial began in September 2019. Ashley remained composed throughout. She appeared calm, often taking notes, occasionally smiling at her attorneys. She maintained that she and Taylor had parted on good terms that morning, that she had no idea what happened afterward. Still, witnesses from her social circle offered testimony that added tension to the proceedings. One woman in particular, Dr. Audrey Warner, testified that she had suspected Ashley of murderous intent even before the Taylor case.
Sounds like you're saying that conversation that Ashley put something in a beer to potentially try to kill someone. Is that correct?
Cassandra Waller took the stand. Under the defense's interrogation, she described Taylor's growing frustration over the money Ashley was reluctant to return. The way Taylor's anxiety built in those final weeks. How Taylor had said she didn't understand why Ashley kept avoiding her.
Conversation of Taylor, right, looking at Ashley McArthur saying, "Give me my money. I want my money." Nothing like that, right?
No.
There was no, "Why are you stealing my money?"
No.
There was no, "Why don't you give me my money?"
No.
There was no, "Why are you making it so difficult for me to get my money?"
There was that.
She said that.
Not in those words.
Okay.
The prosecution built their case piece by piece. The phone records showing both women together until Taylor's phone went dark. Ashley's phone traveling to the burial site. The purchase receipts from the next morning. The financial motive, the ballistic evidence. The defense tried to argue reasonable doubt.
Here's the kicker, and I'm going to talk about this first. The concrete, right here. You have photographs. She put one of them up on the screen, a big one, and you saw the concrete. The concrete had pebbles or rocks like in it, little round stones, which concrete has that you're using on a sidewalk or paving or something like that. If any of you work with concrete, that concrete was rough concrete. And Miss Jensen, after Devontae Sims had testified about Miss McArthur coming in and purchased concrete, she said, oh, he purchased a 50-pound bag, a 40-pound bag. She purchased 2 bags of soil. She got back up on redirect and says, what was the texture of that?
They questioned the phone data accuracy, suggested someone else could have accessed the property, claimed the bullet evidence was inconclusive, but the jury had seen enough. The trial lasted roughly a week. Closing arguments took place on September 26, 2019. Just before 7:30 p.m., the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of first-degree premeditated murder in the death of Taylor Wright. As the verdict was read, there was silence in the courtroom. Members of Taylor's family wept quietly. Ashley remained still, showing little reaction. The judge later sentenced her to life in prison with a mandatory minimum of 25 years in a state prison.
Ashley McArthur, having been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, I am going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you to life with a mandatory minimum 25 years state prison for the firearm. That will be with credit for
327 days.
327 days. That will run concurrent with any other sentence that you are serving. I assume it's $518 fines and costs. Are there any other fines and costs? And anything else the state other than the 30 days?
The woman who spent years helping solve crimes was now convicted of committing one. Her expertise in evidence processing became the very thing that exposed her. Every piece of professional knowledge she possessed worked against her. Ashley McArthur is currently serving her sentence in a Florida state prison. Her appeals have been denied. Taylor Wright's family continues to advocate for victims of financial crimes that escalate to violence. The $34,000 was never recovered.